gas masks and hand grenades. Gas masks and hand grenades. Gas masks and hand grenades. Gas masks and hand grenades.
Hey, YouTube, what is happening? It's Gas Masks and Hand Grenades here, the place where music melts your mind. It's Jeff here. Got another interview today. It's been crazy, man. It's been a crazy fucking month. Crazy. Like, I think this is my 14th interview in February. That's kind of insane. Like, I don't know. I don't know where I'm getting the energy for an old dude, but here we are. So, let's kind of get into this. When you think of death metal in the States, most people into the genre would probably immediately think of the Tampa, Florida scene. But of course, there are many other scenes and areas in the States that have spawned killer death metal bands. And today we'll head out to the city that gave us glam, the city of brotherly love, Los Angeles, which, to be honest, you don't always kind of associate with many long-standing death metal bands, say the legendary and super killer Sadistic Intent, of course, Brujeria, bands like that. But it's not like a hotbed of death metal for some weird reason, like, you know, certain other scenes are. Particularly, you think of it, you think of Tampa. But today, I'm going to bring on two dudes from a newer band. But when I say new, they're not really like the new kids on the block, because they've actually been doing this for about 13 years. And let's be honest here, man. Justin Timberlake never wrote a song like Ripperology. That's just the reality here, all right? So what I want to do is bring these two young guns on here. And again, they're not that young. They've been doing it for 13 years, but they've been doing it since they were pretty young. We're going to kind of get a history of the band. We're going to talk about their new album, and we're going to see what 2024 holds in store for these guys. Let's talk to the guys from Skeletal Remains. I've got Chris Monroy, guitars and lead vocals, and I've got Mike De La O. And I got to say, Mike, right off the bat, bro, yours is my favorite album. You're my favorite album. My favorite name I've ever had to say on this show. It's like the coolest fucking name, like Mike De La O. It's just like, it's just awesome. So there you go. Sorry, Chris. I'm sorry to already antagonize you right off the bat to say Mike is better than you, but it's anyway. So, guys, listen, man, it's super cool to have you here. I thank you very much for doing this. You guys were easy to make this happen, which was great, because as I said before we started, sometimes it's this weird dance I do for 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks, sometimes a couple months where, you know, I think something's going to happen and then it doesn't happen. So this is killer to have you guys on here. And I will say, you know, not patronizing here, I listen to a lot of music. I don't just listen to death metal exclusively. I listen to a lot of different types of music. But of the newer, and again, you guys aren't new, but newer, okay, compared to dudes like some of my friends like Kelly and, you know, Paul Masvidal, guys like that, you guys are new, right? You know, those are old dudes like me. You guys are one of the newer kind of bands on the scene, and I honestly have to say, while the influences are, you know, fairly obvious, I mean, and that's what we do here. We rip off riffs and we rip off sounds, and then we try to coalesce it into our own thing, right? But while you guys have, you know, some very definitive pointers to bands that you have been influential to you, you guys have your own thing, man, and each album is seemingly getting stronger and stronger in that vein, where you're moving more and more into a sound that's uniquely you know what I mean? So thanks for being here. And I guess where I kind of want to start is, you know, tell me a little bit about the history of how this band kind of formed and came together. You started in 2011, I guess, or was that when the demo came out? So was it prior to that you were starting? Chris, and you are, I think, are you the OG member? Was Mike, were you an OG member?
Yeah.
Okay, so you two guys are OGs, and then Mike, you left for a while.
Yeah, I left for a
and then
couple.
come back here in recent times. Tell me a little bit about how things got started. You guys were all buddies in high school, I believe, right?
Yeah. I mean, the band started just a few months before the demo came out. I think we got through that pretty quick. Wrote a couple songs, but yeah, we've been jamming with each other for years. Prior to that, we met in I want to say freshman year of high school is when we started to get to know each other, and then just jamming daily. Just fucking around, going to Chris's pad because his spot was the jam place after school. So we'd just be there hanging out, and then just one day, like we're just listening to the old school jams, and just kind of like fuck, like let's see what we can do, see if we can kind of continue on from what these bands sounded like, and that's kind of where it all fucking hit off.
So you guys met in ninth grade, or did you know each other even before then?
I met him ninth grade. I think
Yeah.
some of the other guys he had known sooner, right?
No, I think we all met around the same time. Yeah, like freshman year of high school. I had just moved here to Whittier, because I was kind of all over the place growing up. So like I went to a different middle school in Montebello, which is like 2 cities over, and then right around high school, like right when high school was going to start, we moved to Whittier, and that's when I started. I literally lived across the high school, so like you mentioned, like usually when like school was over, we'd all just come to my house because it was across the street, and we just jammed there. But yeah, we all pretty much met around like freshman year, and we kind of just, I mean, we all lived kind of like down the street from each other, so we'd either go to each other's houses or meet up to do something. So we were always hanging out and jamming or whatever. And yeah, I think like I was in a different band, and I started kind of doing the touring thing like I think around 10th grade, or I don't remember. I think I was like 17 or 18 when I started touring. So I was quite busy already. And when I would come home and have time off, obviously I was hanging out with with most of my high school friends, Mike being one of them, and we kind of just like death metal was all because the band I was in was more of like a thrashier style, like more I guess death thrashy towards the end, but when I left or whatever, but yeah, we just kind of had the idea of like, hey, let's try to like write some stuff, because we would always be just listening to all this classic death metal and just playing and shit, like covering it with friends, and at my house. And yeah,
I got a question though. Because I'm considerably older than you, dude. like a lot older. I turn 58 next month, so it's kind of like I'm curious to know if high school's still the same way, because it's been a long time since I've been there, right? So was it? Were you catching each other's eyes because of the shirts you were wearing, the metal shirts you were wearing, or was it that you were in a class together and you just got like because how it is, man. When you're out in the world, the world at large, and you see that guy in the carcass shirt, you look at each other and you got a destruction shirt on. You just look at each other and you just know, right? You're like, yeah, man, got you. You know what I mean? Was it that kind of thing in high school, or was it more of a social thing where you just got to know each other through friends, or were you in a music class together, or that kind of stuff?
I think it's a little bit of both.
Yeah, a little bit of all of that, everything you mentioned. Yeah, it's like I think we all ended up. I don't know if we met. I think we must have met before this, but after we had met, we weren't really like. I don't think we were really hanging out much, but we knew who each other were because we were friends of friends. And then we just ended up in a guitar class together. That's where we kind of really started hanging out and like playing together. And then it just became like we just be hanging out pretty much every day after school, or just fucking around, usual shit fucking kids do in high school.
Sure.
But yeah, I think it was a little bit of both. I mean, I think it was a little bit of friends of friends, and also being into the same style of music. And then jamming was a big one, because when we actually sat down and jam, and then we were all kind of like trying to play the same thing. It's like, oh yeah, that's kind of like the same. I'm trying to learn that too right now. So we're kind of all like on the same I guess level of like, I don't know how to explain it, but
the same track.
Yeah.
Did
So
what were some of the first bands that you guys remember, like individually? Like Mike, you can go first. Like as a kid, because you guys, I'm gonna say you're probably in your mid-30s, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So what you came up on is going to be pretty vastly different from what I came up on.
Yeah.
Because when I was in high school, it was Michael Jackson was still just becoming huge. You know what I mean? and it was, you know, the 80s stuff. It was the Tears for Fears and the, you know, the new wave and stuff like that. But I was a kid that came from the 70s, so I was listening to Rush, which is my greatest favorite band of all time. And then you got, you know, Triumph and, you know, all those 70s bands, Boston and the radio stuff. But then I was also into stuff like King Crimson and Yes and stuff like that. So what kind of things were you guys listening to? Because rap was probably pretty big, I'm guessing, which I completely, you know, missed entirely. Which I'm not gonna lie, I'm okay with that. Now I sounded like a boomer there, didn't I? Yeah, I did.
Not
Yeah.
at all, not at all.
But I mean, you know, what was happening at the time, and then tell me how those things, whatever those artists were, how they started to move into the more heavy stuff, where you got into the metal. Like when did that happen for you?
Yeah. Starting off, you know, both my parents, I mean, I'm sorry, are big into music. You know, I mean, not they don't like dive deep into each genre, but like, you know, they're fans of music, so the radio was always playing. So I grew up with a lot of Soundgarden, Pearl Jam, Green Day, Metallica, of course. Metallica was a big one. My dad would always jam that shit. Social Distortion, Misfits, just kind of getting in that direction where it's like stuff is getting a little harsher, you know, a little heavier.
Right.
And then I want to say, you know, fucking like the early days, like when Korn and System of a Down came out,
Oh yeah,
kind of like started pushing me towards that direction. Like, hey, this is pretty good. Like the heavier shit's pretty sick.
yeah.
And then, yeah, just fucking from then on, just kind of like branching out, kind of like doing my own thing. And I didn't really have anybody around me that was big on metal. So like I didn't have a real sense of direction. So whatever sounded heaviest at the time, like I was kind of jumping on. And I want to say it wasn't until like later middle school, early high school years is when I really dove into fucking like death metal. And
Yeah, do you remember what the first death metal was that you heard? Do you remember?
first death metal I heard without knowing it was death metal was fucking Cannibal Corpse and Ace Ventura.
Okay. Right.
And,
oh yeah, right. That was like the dip in point for a lot of people.
Yeah,
that Ace Ventura stuff, right?
And at the time, I was just like, "Whoa, this is fucking brutal!" Like, this is a little too intense for me at the time. I was like, fucking 5-6 years old when the movie came out. But yeah, the first two death metal bands I would say were Deicide and Death, with Scavenger of Human Sorrow was the first record with Death, and then Deicide, I want to say it was either Legion or the first record, I can't remember, but I remember those at the time were pretty intense as well, but I was like digging it. And then from then on, yeah, I just started doing more research and discovering different bands here and there, and fell in love.
Well, just as an aside, Chris, before I get to you, so in the I want to say in the late 80s, like that, when I'm already in college or probably maybe even almost out. But the funny thing is, I used to buy this magazine called Kerrang. You probably heard of it.
Yeah.
Big magazine in the 80s, man, huge metal. And it was weird to watch because they, you know, during the early 80s when they kind of started, I think they started 78 or 79, they were all the hair thing, right? It was all the LA glam stuff and all that, and the Hanoi Rocks and the European stuff. But then, and of course, there was bits and pieces, you know, Motorhead,
yeah,
and Venom and stuff like that. But then when Bathory and Merciful Fate and all those bands started to kind of peek their heads out, well, Kerrang had to be on top of all that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'll never forget when I saw the first pictures of Glenn Benton, and it probably was right around that first album, man. He had burned the upside down cross in his head. I'm like, what kind of a fucking weirdo does something like that? Like, that's what I'm thinking. You know, I'm like, what is up with this dude? Because Glenn's my age. He's, you know, my age or maybe even a year or two or three older. I'm like, what kind of a goof goes out and does something that stupid? Like, so I couldn't get into, like, I liked a lot of the music, Death in particular, but man, I just could not handle the vocals for like years. I was like, man, it's just not for me. But then it kind of switched around 2000, 2001 with Opeth. They were the drug that kind of dragged me in, and then it was onward and upwards. But Chris, how about you? What do you remember from being a preteen, maybe into becoming a teenager and discovering this music? And I forgot to ask you too, both. When did you start playing guitar? Because Chris, sounds like you got started fairly early. And Mike, how about you?
Was I 11?
Okay.
I don't know if I was 11 or so. I can't remember. So about like 22 years now that I've been jamming.
Okay. How about you, Chris?
It's weird, dude. So like my brother is a musician, so that's kind of where a lot of the influence comes from.
Is he older?
Yeah, he's older, so
Okay.
there would be guitars, around the house, and he'd have like punk gigs, like backyard shows, and so I remember being a kid and coming out like, you know, outside, and there's a bunch of people in the back, and like a band's about to play. And I was like, what the fuck is going on? Not knowing what was going on. So, um, so the like there was always like music has been involved since I was small, obviously with my parents, and it being completely different, like Spanish music.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember I first learned like the first song I ever learned was Heart Shaped Box by Nirvana, and I think I was like, I'm not 100% sure, but I want to say I was like in second or third grade, and my brother
Wow.
was like, my brother was like, I think he was showing me how to play it, but that was literally the only thing I remember learning, and then like I just didn't care about the instrument. I just okay, yeah, I learned that, and that was that, and then I didn't get serious about it until probably like maybe like seventh grade. Um, there was some friends that I knew who were like getting into playing guitar, and then I just kind of found it interesting again, and that's when I think I got my own guitar, and then I really started getting serious, and like high school and all that. Like it might have been actually more like fifth grade, because I remember being like just in my room for fucking like the majority of like sixth, seventh, eighth, and then up to like ninth grade when I met Mike. Like I would just be that's all I would do, just sit in my room and play guitar.
Wow.
Yeah. So I started fairly young, but like the whole music thing, yeah, I kind of come from like the same background as like Mike. Like a lot of the music that I was hearing was because of my brother and sister and what was going on then, like in the '90s. So, like
Yeah.
Pearl Jam, Soundgarden, Rancid, No Doubt, yeah, like a lot of that stuff. And then I remember being into like Metallica. I remember discovering them. Once I discovered like Kirk Hammett, that's when things like really fucking changed for me. And I
Yeah.
really got into like being like an actual guitar player and trying to play solos and just trying to pick up everything he did. So he was like was one of the main inspirations when I was younger. But yeah, there was a lot of different stuff too. A lot of like Spanish rock. Um, a lot of just like music from my parents, like Spanish music, that I still listen to today. But when I really like got into death metal, I think it's like right after I like discovered Slayer, Halloween, and then I remember the first thing I heard was Ultras of Madness, and I remember it being like, the music is fucking sick, but the vocals are not for me. Like I could not get
Yeah.
into it, and I was just like, yeah, like one of my friends I think was one that showed me Altars of Madness, and I was just like, it's sick, but yeah, it's just not for me. And then I don't know, like fucking a year later or something, it ended up becoming one of my favorite records, and then that's when I started like really getting into like DSI and Death and Gore Guts and whatever came after that, but yeah, I think from what I remember, I think Altars was like one of the first death metal records I ever heard.
Isn't it kind of funny and ironic that we had the both same visceral reaction to the vocals, where it's like,
Yeah,
the fuck is that, man? Like, why would you
yeah,
sing? Like, I remember thinking, now, granted, again, I'm an older dude, but I'm like thinking, why would you sing like that? Like, what's the purpose of that, But it's weird because now, and again, I love a lot of different genres, but I kind of prefer it over a lot of clean vocals a lot of the time, weirdly. So I think it's a conditioning thing in a lot of ways. You just your brain starts to kind of hear things differently, and maybe it's like I don't know if you guys are into any like industrial type music or anything like that. If you're aware of any of that kind of stuff, like
yeah.
Skinny Puppy and Frontline Assembly bands like that. But like the very first like industrial band, they kind of like pigeonhole it to be Throbbing Gristle, and that, man, like when you listen to that for the first time, you're like, why? Like, why would anybody do this? Like, what's the point of this? But then once you make the weird thing about it is it kind of pulls you back in, and you go, well, I want to check that out again because that was so fucking weird. I got to check it out again, right?
Yep.
And then you go back to it and you're like, oh, okay, all right. I kind of like that little part there, and I kind of like that. But the other, it's 52 minutes, and the other 48 minutes I think suck really bad. But those 4 minutes are really cool, that kind of stuff, right? But then
Yeah.
before you know it, you're kind of like in it, and that's kind of like what happened with me with death metal. Was I tell this story occasionally? You guys familiar with Porcupine Tree? You ever hear that band?
No.
No.
Prog rock, hard, like kind of like a mixture of if you took like the heaviness of Tool with like and maybe the prettiness of Opeth and mixed it with like Jethro Tull and King Crimson, it would kind of give you that kind of vibe. But they Steve is the main dude in that band, main writer and guitarist and songwriter and everything. And we became good buddies way back in the late 90s, and we do email stuff back and forth, and he was actually doing the production work on Blackwater Park, like right before, right around the time that I met him, a little bit before that.
That's pretty sick.
And yeah, and that's sick. I don't know what your feeling is on that record, but I think it's one of the best progressive death metal albums ever written. But him and Mike were really good friends. And long story short, I was really into like this industrial stuff, like Skinny Puppy, and I turned him on to like Skinny Puppy and Frontline, and those vocals were all very manipulated and filtered, and like made harsh and made with the filters and all kind of vocoders and all kind of weird stuff. And I was all into that stuff, and he sent me Opeth, and he's like, "You gotta check these guys out." And I'm like, "Man, the music's killer, but I mean, the vocals suck." And he's like, "Wait a minute, you just sent me this shit that has this bizarre, weird vocals, and you're saying the vocals suck on this?" And I'm like, "Oh." He had to point that out to me, the obvious, right?
Yeah.
It was like, yeah, I'm like, and then it was like, boom, it was off to the races, and Uber and the black metal scene and all that stuff was kind of happening for me. So you guys are in ninth grade, you start to kind of jam over at Chris's house, and at this point you're listening to Death and Morbid and all those kind of bands. You start writing your own tunes. Or Chris, I imagine you seem to be the predominant writer. I hope I'm not stepping on your toes, but you seem to be maybe the predominant writer as far as songs. Were you, or is that not fair?
Not in the early days. I mean, I guess it's kind of the same now too, though. But like in the early days, I think this being like I said, I was completely busy with my other project. So when we started this, it was kind of, if I remember, I think it was more of Mike's idea, and he was the one that like, hey, you want to jam? And I was like, yeah, fuck it, but why the fuck not? We do that shit all the time, anyways. So when we were like, oh, let's write some shit, I think he was doing I think he was the one that started writing Traumatic, right?
Yeah, parts of it.
Yeah,
riffs here and there that I was just kind of like holding on to.
Yeah.
Work.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of the same now. I mean, we're both kind of like, I mean, I feel like we both push each other. Like, let's try to write something, or he'll tell me, I want to write, and we'll try to get into like, writing some new shit. But no, I mean, I guess we're both kind of the same when it comes to writing.
Yeah, I didn't mean to step on any toes. I just was I'm not really certain who because how a lot of bands do have like one primary writer. It's just seems to be that way a lot of the times, particularly in metal. For some reason, there's the guitars usually drive the music a lot of time. It's not like prog where the keyboard is usually the thing, or maybe like a singer-songwriter where the vocal melodies might be. For metal, it's primarily guitarists that kind of make shit happen.
Yeah.
So as you two guys being the two guitarists, I assume that in general you're the writers, and I don't know why I assumed Chris was the main one, but I guess you're writing this material and you demo, and I guess are you messing around on computers at this point in time, or is this still like
actually
or?
I think because I remember there was some points too. I can't remember if we were already doing this when we were trying to start up Skeletal, but I know that me and Mike would like also like record covers, because I know there's covers. Remember when we'd record covers in my brother's room?
Yeah.
I know we did like some death covers, and there's covers out there that I don't know what happened to them. I think they were uploaded like on a MySpace page at one point. And I just can't find it. Yeah, but I wish I could, because it'd be sick to listen to them. But yeah, I guess I was kind of into like Pro Tools by then. I was kind of like learning about it. I wasn't great at it. So I was kind of into it. I had an idea how to record. But even when we did like our first demo, we went with a friend because he just knew he
Okay.
knew how to do all that. So he's the one that did our demo, and then I didn't actually I didn't get serious about like learning how to do my own stuff till like after the second record, I think, when it started becoming more of like me writing most of the music and not really having help from the rest of the guys, and just me doing it in my room alone. That's when I kind of started like really getting into like just recording just demos for myself and like for songs. And that's when I got into Logic. And that's once I got like, because before I was doing it on Windows and Pro Tools, and I just always had issues with it, like crashing, and then I just lose
Right.
the whole project, and I was like, fuck this shit, it was fucking annoying. So once I got a Mac and I got into Logic and I figured out how fucking smooth it can run, and not having to worry about fucking like losing like the project I'm working on, then I really started getting into it and kind of figuring out how it all works. And then I kind of just started getting Mike into it so he can like write shit on his own and then just send me ideas instead of having to meet every day. Or just. But I mean, back to your question, I guess I was kind of already into it around that time, because I do remember me and Mike or just like in general, just me and like some friends would just record covers and stuff like to a drum machine or some shit.
Yeah, I just recently I found a box of old Fostex cassettes, and I had an old Fostex 4-track, and I was pulling these out, going, "Wow, what the hell are these?" Right? A lot of like early rudimentary, mid '80s, early '80s, well, probably mid '80s, like after I got out of high school, and a lot of real trash on there. Just a lot of wanking. Just jerking off on the guitar a lot. Like, what the hell is this? But some really cool things too. But it's crazy to think about now where we're at with technology versus where we were at just 25 years, 30 years ago, where you had to bounce tracks if you wanted to get more than 4 tracks, if you wanted to do more than a bass line and a rhythm track and a solo over, you had to bounce tracks. And it's just crazy to think what you can do now with a computer. But so the first the demo, Desolate Isolation, does that lead? How do we get from 9th grade playing at Mike's place, jamming, to? And by the way, do you get to a certain point at that level where you start actually doing any local gigs, whether it be like a pizza place or just a park, or was there not really any place to really do that kind of thing there?
I think when I was still in the band, we would only played like 2 shows, like a backyard gig and then Val's tattoo shop.
Yeah, and I don't think we were even Skeletal Remains yet. It was still Anthropophagy.
Yeah.
And it was still just me and Mike, but we just had friends that were like, hey, you want to fucking jam out with us and play the show? And I was like, oh, this backyard. I think we played 1 or 2 shows. I can't remember, but Mike left right around the time we started recording Desolate, and then that's when I brought two different people and the 2 Adrians that were in the old lineup, or part of the like the first and the second record, and that's when we decided to do the name change. But yeah, around once we did the name change, that's when we really started getting busy and like playing just all over the place. Then obviously we released the demo first. Once the demo released, then people started hearing about us, and then locally, and then we just get hit up like, hey, you want to play this backyard? Like, fuck yeah, why not? So we were just playing like, I think at some point we were playing like 2 to 3 shows a weekend, like Friday, Saturday, Sunday, sometimes just Friday and Saturday, but we were just playing nonstop as much as we could. And then we started getting some attention from overseas. Someone contacted us and said, hey, would you be interested in releasing your demo on tape out here in Germany? I have my own record label, which is FDA Records. And we were totally we were just fucking kids. We're like, hell yeah, we'd love to. And, they released the first demo and that shit sold out like really fucking quick.
Wow.
And then he kind of just started getting ideas of, he started pitching us these ideas like, hey, what do you guys think about doing a full length? And we're like, yeah, sure. We're already working on new music. So we started working on a full length, and then we did the first record with them, and then we got the offer to go to Europe and do a tour in Europe. And it being that the label was based out in Germany, it seems like when we first started, we just had more attention in Europe than here in the U.S. because we didn't really have, besides ourselves, nobody was really pushing our shit out here, you know?
Well, I was going to ask you if I can interrupt there. I was going to ask
Yeah,
you
yeah.
about that because, you know, when you think of LA, you don't necessarily really think of that being as a, and maybe correct me if I'm wrong here, but what, you know, you don't think of that as being a hotbed for death metal for some reason. I mean, it's massive, you know, if you,
Mhm.
for people that haven't been to LA, it's fucking, you know, it's massive. Just let's put it that way. Was there any kind of a real scene there that you were tapped into in any way, shape, or form, or was it kind of just you heard of this band or that band and you kind of knew of that? You know what I mean? Unlike like the Tampa scene where everybody was right on top of each other and knew each other, and you know we're
Yeah.
going to Morris Sound and shit like that. I think was it a different sort of a vibe out there
Yeah,
that time?
Yeah.
when we started, there were only like a handful of bands doing like the old school death metal kind of revival. I think at the time thrash was big, and more like melodic kind of stuff was the thing. So yeah, I want to say
Yeah,
like
that was one of the part of the reason too why we started the band, because there wasn't many bands doing like that whole old school, you know, Florida worship death metal that we were trying to go for. But I mean, obviously you had the classics like you mentioned, Statistic earlier. Like they've been around since forever.
Well, they're kind of
Um,
like the OGs, but they're not really Florida.
yeah,
They're more that possessed, thrashy. They have
yeah,
their
yeah,
own sort of vibe. I mean, they're
yeah.
kind of like their own unit, right? You know, and I mean, they were kind of like, I mean, I don't know. I'm sure there were other bands from that. I can't remember. Vaughn was out that way, but they're more of a black metal band. Is Vaughn, LA? I think they're LA, aren't they?
that sounds familiar, but
I
I'm
think
not
I
100
think it was
percent
Vaughn
sure.
was from out that way.
There,
Rod,
there was definitely a lot of black metal going on. There was a lot of like brutal death metal. But like I said, there was no like really like the old school style of death metal bands going on. I think there might have been like one or two shortly after we came out. People started kind of be like, oh shit, like we should try to do something similar. At least in LA, but in the
mhm.
Bay Area, there was a shitload of stuff going on. I think um, Rude was already around then. Um, I think even I'm not. I mean, I'm not 100% sure, but I think Necrot was already around, but they were just not. They were like a fairly smaller band, and
Yeah, I
yeah,
think you're right. Yeah.
yeah. So there was a lot of stuff going on there in the Bay Area, but we just didn't know about it because we were just kids in LA. We didn't get out of LA, so here in LA there wasn't much going on. There was just like a lot of. I remember a lot of brutal death metal bands, a lot of like grindcore, like a lot of extreme stuff like that, but not like we were trying to just go for like more simple, like straightforward, like early leprosy, considered dead era style of like early death leprosy era, like style of death metal, like not too brutal, still super like simple and catchy. Um, and there wasn't much like that here.
Yeah, yeah. Super riffy too. I mean, the one album I did not pull my CDs because they're all over the place. I couldn't even tell you if I could because I don't have like a rack up on the walls. I had to move back during COVID and all my shit's still in boxes. So the stuff that you see like up there, all those CDs and box sets and shit, that's just stuff I've accrued over the last couple of months. And it just, how it is. You roll it through the Rolodex, you jam it for a while, and then it goes in for
Yeah,
most people, it goes up on the shelf. For me, it goes in boxes and closets because I don't have the storage space to do 4,000 CDs up on a wall. I just don't have that space.
yeah,
But I have every one but Beyond the Flesh. And last night I'm like, kind of getting my head in the game to research you guys a little bit so I don't look like a total doofus. And also just to let you know real quick, tangentially here, I came into you guys through Devouring. And a good friend of mine has a podcast. He's been doing it for a couple years called Metalheads Podcast. So I got a shout out to John here. He's the guy that put me onto you. One day he's like, "Hey, dude, did you check out Skeletal Remains yet?" And I'm like, "Nah, I mean, you know how it is, guys. There's a million fucking death metal bands out there now.
Yeah.
Like,
right.
let's be honest." And I said this in my promo stuff for you guys. Not all of it's good. I'm just going to be straight up. It's just not. A lot of it is very repetitive of that band and that. You know how one band starts that sort of trend, like let's say the cavernous death metal thing, and next thing you know, there's 478 bands doing cavernous death metal, right? And it's like you kind of and unfortunately, I come from a school of a lot of old school dudes that are like, why the fuck would I want to listen to a new death metal band that sounds like Morbid Angel? Like, why don't I just go listen to Morbid Angel? I'm not that guy. I want to hear new stuff. You know what I mean? I'm into it, but I'm not beyond going, okay, well, that band sounds just like that band, which sounds just like that band, which sounds just like that band. You know how it is, right?
Yeah.
You guys don't have that right away, man. I don't know whether I previewed it or whether I just took it on his word and was like, well, I know John's taste, so it's probably going to rip. I think I did. I think I just grabbed Devouring, and right away, man, Ripperology came on. I'm like, sold, done, it's over. And I was like, because the riffs are fucking killer. They're memorable. But here's the deal. Like, I only just got Condemned a couple months ago. I had the Entombment already and Devouring, like I said, but I only just got Condemned. But I do not own Beyond the Flesh. And so I went back and listened to it last night. I realized I don't think I ever listened to this. I pulled it up and I'm like, fuck, man, these guys were nailing it right out of the gate in 2012 on their first album. And, you know, we can talk. You guys have heard it, and you're probably really sick and tired of hearing, oh, it sounds like Morbid. Oh, it sounds like early Gorgon. Oh, it sounds like, you know, you guys already referenced that yourselves. You're not like trying to say you reinvented death metal. I mean, that's reality. But I was really kind of stunned at how killer Beyond the Flesh was right out of the gate. You guys sounded way more mature. Now, the demos didn't do as much for me. They're still pretty raw. And I'm not that guy that was like, the demos were always the best, man. You know, there's those guys, you know, like nothing can top the demos, right? I never quite get that because usually the demos, I don't know. I'm rambling here. But what, like, so that first album that came out on the German label, Chris?
Yeah, that was a part of both the first two records are on FDA Records. Yeah, but
how long were those songs around? Like, had you been working on those for a while, or did you specifically write them more for that album? Those albums?
Yeah. So the for the first record, that half of that record is just a demo. Yeah. So we just re-recorded the demo and put it on the record, and the other half was just new songs that we started working on. I think one of the song before, I don't remember. I'm not sure. Were you a part of Extirpated, Mike?
Yeah.
You remember?
Yeah.
I think there's one song that's not on the demo that me and Mike were barely starting to write once we had finished writing the demo. But besides that, we kind of just continued and finished writing. We just wrote the songs for that record because we were like, I think we maybe had one song after the demo once once Mike left on the new lineup. And then we got hit up to do a record, and we're like, oh yeah, sure, we'll write a couple more songs, and we kind of just wrote the remaining songs for that record.
Did you get a lot of opportunity to tour on that? You did say that you went over to Europe, right?
Yeah, once we released the first record, I can't remember. Honestly, I think we might have gotten the offer to tour Europe during the demo. I'm not sure if it was. I can't remember. I think it might. I don't know if it was after the record or maybe the record was just about to come out, and we did the tour around that. Not 100% sure. I can't remember right now, but yeah, we like I said, we didn't tour the U.S. till 2018, so we were just touring Europe all the time. Like it seemed like that was just our fan base. We didn't really have a fan base here in the U.S. Like we didn't really get hit up like to do much besides like a festival here and there. We didn't really get hit up to do like, oh, you want to do a tour or anything like that till 2018 when we got hit up for the Black Dahlia tour. And I think that was right when we had signed to Century Media. So like I was going back to FDA being a European German label, they were pushing most of our shit out over there. So it seems like all the attention was there, and that's why we were getting asked to like come out and do some tours. So yeah, that first record definitely was able to, to get us out to Europe, and we were able to do some really cool festivals, Party Sand, Brutal Salt. And yeah, it was sick, man. We were, like I said, we were just kids right out of high
Yeah, how
school.
old
And
were you guys at this
I
point in
think
time?
I think we were
I think
23, 24?
20 when the first record came.
like 20, I think maybe
Yeah.
When the
around
first
20,
record
20.
came out.
Yeah, I think so.
Damn, man. You
Yeah,
just pups, man.
yeah, yeah. So
And
I had
now,
already
Mike,
gone to
you were
Europe.
not a part of that touring package the first time around?
What was that?
Am I wrong in saying that you were or you weren't part of the touring band? You weren't.
No.
Okay.
Yeah. Pretty much as soon as the demo was like just about finished recording, I had taken off.
What was going on there? Anything you want to get into or not anything?
Girls.
Ah, chicks. Always. See, the weird thing about the chick thing is, okay, and this is not being denigrating to women. I love women. I'm not a misogynist, so I apologize for saying chicks. But the thing about the chick thing is, in like the LA scene, the chicks are responsible for all those bands. Like without the women, none of those bands would have made it, man. All those dudes would have either overdosed or ended up working in fucking kitchens doing dishes. You know what I mean? Like that's the reality. The women are what kept those bands alive and able to, happen. You don't really have that in death metal, man. Let's be honest, man. You just don't have very many understanding women. I remember my ex-fiance one day jumped in the car and I think I had Meshuggah like cranked and I'd forgotten like when I come in and pull in the driveway at night or after work or whatever, I'd crank the volume down. But this one particular day I didn't, and she got in the car and I fired the car up and it was like Sleep of whatever that album is, the next to the last one. And man, it was just, Jens is in the middle of that one of his, screams, and she looks over and she goes, "It's just something really wrong with you, man." That's right. And I'll go to my grave just like this. So you want to marry this, you know what you're into. But it's like, yeah, so you left and then Chris, you said you brought in two Aarons, right?
Adrian's, yeah. They were also friends like from high school. We all kind of grew up together in the Whittier area, and so they came in, and then we're forgetting about Reyes too, our first drummer. He was actually around right when me and Mike started the band. I had how I had mentioned that I went to I was living somewhere else in Montebello in different mills. I went to different middle school,
Mm-hmm.
and I actually went to school with him in Montebello. So the way he came in the picture was, I think I knew him from middle school, but I didn't really we weren't really friends. He was just kind of a friend of a friend, and I knew of him. He knew of me or whatever. And then I don't remember how I got in touch with him, but I just remember me and Mike were like, "So who are we going to use for a drummer?" Because that was the most important thing. The bass player thing. Like we had a bunch of friends who played bass and guitar, so there was no issue finding a bass player. It was mostly finding a drummer. So I don't remember if I like maybe we were friends on MySpace or something, but somehow I got back in touch with him and I asked him, hey, because I knew he was a drummer from back then, and I asked him like, hey, are you still drumming? He's like, yeah, here and there, and then we kind of just like, hey, we're starting a new band, you want to try and like drum for us? And I think I don't remember if he just like came and tried out. Do you remember any of that? Like what happened, Mike?
I remember. I almost want to say there was actually somebody we were hitting up before him that almost happened. I just can't even remember who that. But yeah, I think one. Yeah, because I think we had the music already. I think we had Traumatic was like halfway written or almost fully written, and then we brought him in just to kind of test it out. And yeah, like since it was the more basic, simpler, dumbed down death metal, like he did perfectly fine. No,
and I think
I don't mean like.
But yeah, so I forgot to mention him. He was around for pretty much up into the second record, so he's also somewhat of an original because he was there since the beginning.
Did he play on the second album? Because I don't see him listed on there.
No, he only played. Well, it was weird. He actually recorded the whole second record, but we decided to not move forward with it because it wasn't working. Like from the first record to the second record, it was a little bit of a jump, and we were trying to get a little bit more technical.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And
Yeah.
yeah, like with his, he just like it just wasn't working, and we just
Yeah.
told him like, hey, dude, like, it's just not gonna work. So he was a part of the like he was there for like when we were writing the record and stuff.
Right.
But just when it came to actually like record the record, he actually recorded the whole thing, and we were just like, dude, I don't like we weren't too happy with like how it came out, so we ended up asking another friend, Carlos, who plays in like Warbringer and a bunch of bands. So he was just he was he was a friend. I met him because, like I said, I used to play in a different thrash band, and he was kind of involved with that scene, the thrash scene, and we kind of became friends. And I just asked him, like, hey, dude, would you be down to play on this record? We have all this music. I sent him the tracks, and he was like, yeah, totally. And so he recorded the drums for that record. But yeah, Chris Reyes left right after the right when we started recording the second record.
Is that so you had a drummer from the Warbringer drummer pop in and just do the drums on the second album then?
Yeah, exactly. And then after that, I forgot. I think he might have helped with a couple shows as well, Carlos. And then we got another friend to just kind of play drums, and then we went back out to Europe. When we first played Europe for the first record, we played Partisan, and that's where we kind of got in touch with Century Media. We met a lot of them there.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, how'd that come about then? I mean, did they end up picking you up for Devouring?
Yes. So we kind of like chatted there, and I don't remember if there was. Yeah, I think there was already some interest of like possibly working with us, and we had the deal with FDA, which was for 2 records, so we had to finish up that deal. And then after that deal was finished, we kind of like came back to them and like hit them up. Hey, you guys still interested? We're gonna write a new record, and that's kind of so we kind of had already met since the first record, but things just didn't work out because we were on a different label, and we had a contract. So, so they didn't come into the picture until Devouring. And then, so we released Devouring under Century Media, and I'm trying to remember. Oh yeah, and then that's when we got another drummer for that record, and then around that time is when like things were starting to get weird with that lineup, and like people weren't really like wanting to like it seemed like I don't know, like the some of the members were starting to get more into like party side of being in a band instead of being like serious about
the music.
Yeah. So that's when like a lot of the writing, like specifically for Devouring, like that's when it was mostly me doing a lot of the writing on my own, and I just bring up the ideas to them, like, hey, like this is what I got, and they were just, yeah, that's cool. And so that's when things started kind of getting weird, and like I don't know that it seemed like the band was starting to like kind of fall apart. And we recorded that record Devouring, and we were in the studio, and I think we went to go lay down the drum tracks, and then I forgot, it was around the time when I had just had my first kid. So it was just a weird time, and I like trying to find, like, we figured out the schedule, because I think at that point we all had kids, so we figured out a schedule where it would be like, hey, I'll go in one day, do my guitar parts, I'll take a day off, be with my kids, and then you go and do your guitar parts, take a day off, and we're just trying to like switch off so it'd work out better. But then,
can I interrupt 1 sec?
Yeah.
Are you? And this is always a tricky question. I don't really know how to phrase it, but are you full-time band dudes, or are you actually still working day jobs? I mean, because I don't even know now, like if you're working day jobs or whether you're full-time. In other words, I guess what I'm asking is the band paying the bills yet or not? Because we know in a lot of cases with death metal, it's hard to pay the bills with that, unless you're a super well-established band. And you guys do tour and get out there a lot, but I mean, I would imagine it's not super easy to pay the bills. So you can answer that or not answer it how you like.
Yeah,
I guess that's what I'm getting at.
Are you referring to like now or when we were recording the
Well,
third
back
record?
then, I'm assuming it wasn't that way.
No, no, of course no, no, no. We didn't have. I mean, yeah, we would make money, but like, we all had jobs. We all had fucking, we had to have day jobs because
Yeah.
back then it was like I said, we weren't even touring like we're touring now. Like we didn't tour the U.S. until 2018.
Right.
So like we were probably just doing one or two tours a year, and it was mostly Europe. Um, so yeah, definitely there was no, yeah, we were not making much money. It was it was more of like a hobby, I guess, but we were all very serious about it, or at least I was. And so the schedule thing started kind of falling apart. People weren't like committing to it, and it ended up turning into me just going in there and doing everything besides the drums for that record.
Wow.
So on that record, it's literally just me and the drummer.
Wow. No shit. Mike, when do you come back?
I came back late 2019.
Okay, so you were back for Entombment then.
Chris got muted.
Yeah, he muted himself. Is he back? There he is.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry about that.
That's all right. That's all right. No, I mean, if you have, I should always tell people before we start, if you're on your phones, you should probably do the do not disturb thing, because sometimes I've been on with like, I forget who the hell I was on with one day, and he's like, "Oh, I gotta take this call." I'm like, "Okay, right. Like, what else am I gonna do?" I mean, no, but you can't take that call. So devouring is, you do all that. Now that's where maybe the profile of the band starts to raise a little bit, right?
Mhm.
You're on a major label, you're on Century Media now, you're getting a lot more push, you may be getting a lot more promotion worldwide as opposed to just in Europe, right? You're starting to get in the metal mags, if there were any, or at least the online stuff like that, and your profile is starting to raise quite a bit. Now, like I said, that's where I came into you guys, because I'm not gonna lie, I'm not that guy that's sitting on Bandcamp all day looking for the next death metal band to interview or to listen to. It's like, I don't need that much help spending my disposable income. I just don't, right? But that's kind of where I came into you guys. And as an aside real quick, I'm trying to remember the first time I know you guys, I recognize your name as playing out. What tours did you do in 18 that I would remember stateside that you were out with?
We did the Black Dahlia. It was Black Dahlia, Power Trip. That tour was, it was so many different bands because it was just like bands going in and out on different like parts of the U.S. Like I think Havoc was on there for a certain part. I know Power Trip was on there for a certain part. But I think the majority of the tour was Black Dahlia, us, and Ghost. Not Ghost, but
Ghost, yeah.
Yeah, Ghost,
Yeah.
And I think besides those three bands, that was the actual three bands that were on the whole package, if I remember correctly. And then there was just bands coming in and out. Like, I think Pig Destroyer was on some of them. I'm trying to remember, but it was quite a it was just all over the place.
Yeah, Nick reminded me of the one which I think would have been for the last album when you were out with Voivod and Revocation.
Oh yeah, I think that's
21.
20. Voivod and Revocation. That was probably like 2019.
That was 19. Actually, it was 19. Yeah, because I saw Voivod with Yob, and then they went back out with you guys, and that was the one. I know you were playing Philly, and I'm almost pretty certain you played. I think you played. Shit, what's the name of it? I can't remember the name of the venue down there. It wasn't the TLA, or might have been the Troc, maybe, but I don't know if the Troc was still around then, because that went out of. Anyways, long story short, I planned to get down and see that, and something happened and it fell through. And then I know you played MDF like twice now, is it? Or
yeah, we've done it twice. Yeah, twice.
And I know you were there last year, and unfortunately, because of my medical problems, I 22. I couldn't make it down for that because I didn't want to take a chance around being around thousands of people with COVID. Still, kind of not really.
Yeah.
I can't be vaxxed, so it was one of those things I wanted to take a chance. But I came this close. I came this close in November when you guys were at Reverb with Incant and Suffo.
Yes.
And I was like, man, I got to get up to see these guys. And the day before, my car broke down and it ended up in the shop. And I didn't really have like a legitimately easy way to get up and get back without bugging people that I knew probably weren't into that wouldn't have been into the music very much.
Yeah.
So it's like you guys and Blood Incantation are the two bands that I'm like into of the newer death metal that I'm like, it just seems like there's some kind of weird thing out in the cosmos that's defeating me from getting to see you guys. But I'm hoping that we'll rectify that soon. So we'll get to that here towards the end when we talk about 2024 plans. But so Mike, you come back into the band. So actually, let's go back to Devouring real quick. You get to get your first sort of stateside notoriety, I guess, in terms of like profile raising, right? And how was that for you with that album, and like what did that lead to overall for you?
It was great. Actually, for Divine, we actually had Dark Descent in the US. So it was Century Media Europe, Dark Descent in the US.
Right,
So Dark
that's
Descent,
right.
yes. So Dark Descent helped a lot with pushing us here in the US, and great label, and that's awesome. So
that's right.
Yeah,
They put out Devouring. That's right. I forgot that.
Mhm.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So Matt helped us out with putting out that one, and then for Entombment, we obviously went worldwide with Century Media. But yeah, man, I mean that like Divine opened a lot of doors for us. Till this day, that's most like a lot of people's favorite records, because I feel like that's a lot of people found out about us with that record. Like they didn't know we had a fucking 2 records before this. Like there's people that I've met and like they're like, yeah, man, like Devouring, like first record. I'm like, no, that's our 3rd record. Like we have 2 records before that. People just don't know about it because it was on a smaller label, and it was like I said, we were mostly pushed in Europe. But luckily, once we signed with Century Media, we actually, it was around the time we were getting our rights back from FDA. So Century Media ended up just releasing our whole catalog. So it's all available from them now. But yeah, back to your question, 2018, yeah, man. I mean, yeah, it opened a lot of doors for us. We were able to do a lot. And I gotta thank Black Dahlia too, because they were like the first band to take us out, and yeah, like that. I feel like once we were able to actually tour, like people started seeing our name, and then that's when we started getting asked a lot. And now it's weird. Now it's kind of like turned around. Like now we haven't really played Europe like that much. Before that's all we were doing. So now we're mostly just touring the U.S. I mean, we'll still go out to Europe and do festivals and stuff, but it's weird. It hasn't, like, it seemed like when we were on FDA, like that's all we were doing. We were doing like 2 to 3 tours in Europe a year, and now it's like I mean, it could also be because of COVID and all that, but yeah, it feels like our fan base is like getting stronger in the U.S. now instead of Europe.
As I said, I don't have that on me. So who produced that? Did you guys self-produce, or
Which one? Which record?
Devouring?
Yes. So it was Dan Swana mixed and mastered, but yeah, it was kind of like self-produced, and Swana was also helping with that. But yeah, it was Dan Swana mixed and mastered.
So Dan did the mixing and mastering of the last 3, right?
Yeah,
pretty much. Yeah.
How'd you get connected with him? Because I mean, anybody that knows anything about extreme metal knows that name. I mean, it's like and I got to work to get him in here. I definitely want to pull him into the show, but just the master, right? I mean, going back to fucking the late 80s, right? I mean, how'd you hook up with him? Was it through the label, or did you know people, or
a little bit of both? I mean, it was through the label, and like also us being fans of like some, like I remember when I heard Death Hammer Asterix. I think it was around the same. I want to say it was around. I'm not 100% sure, but I remember being super stoked on that production and being like, shit, like we should try to sound like this type of production, where it still kind of has like that old school vibe, but it's like modern. So
modern? Yeah,
we were obviously fans of him from before, and when we started talking about like, well, who should we get to do like the mixing and mastering, Swano was definitely up there, Rutan, and yeah, I don't know, we just got in touch with him, and he was interested, and he was available for the time that we needed him to be available for to do it. So we just ended up working with him, and it kind of just, just like we just built this relationship from that record, and ever since, like, it just works out perfectly fine. Like, he understands what we're trying to do, and he understands, the band and like the style we're trying to go for. So a lot of the time, it's like when we send him stuff, like, and I know I said this in other interviews, but like, it's like, yeah, like if we have ideas of like, oh, we want a certain effect on this part, like a lot of the times, like especially like on Devour, like I remember there was a lot of notes that I had of like certain things I wanted, and before I even got to tell him, like he would send back mixes with those effects already on them. Like, what the fuck?
Oh
Like, that's
wow,
exactly, yeah. So
he's
there's
reading your
a lot.
mind.
Yeah, a lot of that stuff has happened. So I feel like he really understands the band, and he understands what we're trying to go for. So yeah, it's just worked out really well, and yeah, nothing like we've had nothing but good experiences with him, and that's why we've used him for the last three. But I'm not sure what will happen for the next one. We there was like we've been wanting to work with Rutan for a long time, so we
Right.
hope to be able to do that at some point. We're obviously big fans of him, and I yeah, it would just be a dream, like a dream come true for us. So
Hard to
I'm not
pin
sure.
him down, man. He's busy as hell, right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah.
I mean, it's like Cannibal's probably. I don't think there's a death metal band out there that's kind of on the level of Cannibal in terms of touring and just the high
Yeah.
profile and moving merch and moving. They are kind of the apex predator, right? So it's like kind of once he went there, it was probably like, oh fuck, man, probably not going to happen for a while, right?
Yeah, there was talks about using him for, was it for Entombment?
Yeah, and
You
two.
remember, Mike?
Yeah.
And I think just the scheduling didn't work. And he was just, yeah, like it was around the time when he had just joined Cannibal, but he couldn't say anything about it, I think.
Yeah.
So it's just like, I just don't have time to do it right now. And then, when he announced the Cannibal thing, it's like, oh, it makes perfect sense why he couldn't do it. But
Have you been out with him ever, or
um,
like you?
like touring, you mean,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
no? So we've done, I think we did one show, the
Yeah.
Costa Rica one with Cannibal.
Yeah.
But I worked with him before, so I've known him from before. I did a record with him with a different band.
Okay.
So I know him. I know him a little bit, and yeah, we have his contact. We exchanged numbers when we played with him in Costa Rica. So we told him we'd still be interested on, doing a record with him. It's just finding the right time to do it, and if he's available to do it.
So Entombment comes out, and Mike, you're back. You come back for this. What I guess what transpired all that? Like what was happening that made that happen, Chris? And did you reach out to Mike, or Mike reach out to you, or how'd that all go down?
It was definitely timing. At the time, I was going through a divorce, so I had a whole lot
Chicks again.
yeah, chicks again. A whole lot of free time in my hands. And Chris has always known how passionate I was about Skeletal. Just I just didn't have the time to do it. So at the time, like he was stating before, how some of the former bandmates weren't really into it. Like the commitment wasn't really there anymore. So they had dropped off, and just at that time, I became available. So he reached out to me, and I was a little reluctant at first because I was like, fuck, I haven't done this in so long. Like the band's already progressed to this level. I feel fucking nervous. I don't know if I could fill these shoes. But thankfully everything worked out, and since then it's just given me more confidence to fucking come back. Yeah.
Well, did you in the interim, like two questions on that? Okay, first is, were you keeping tabs on them and kind of keeping an eye on what was going on? One, and two, I mean, I'm assuming you two still kept at least in sporadic contact in some
Yeah.
of those.
Yeah.
But
We were still in touch because, Mike was kind of like, it's almost like he was like a fifth member of the band.
unofficial member, right? Yeah.
Yeah, because he would also hop out with like filling in sometimes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so he was like, when and not besides the band, me and him kept touch. Like we stayed in touch throughout this whole, like throughout when I was doing Skeletal, and he wasn't in the band. We still hung out when I was home and shit. But yeah, I mean, like I feel like he had already kind of, so he had already filled in, and I had already told him like there was a possibility that the members that were in there weren't gonna be in the band anymore.
Hmm.
So yeah, like you said, just timing. back to
So
I don't
you
know
kept your
if you want.
chops up, Mike? You kept your chops up throughout this whole time? Because you know how that can be sometimes, you know, when life starts to get in the way and like the band is not the thing, you know, I don't know about you, but I generally play every day and I'm not in the band, but I don't always, I kind of find I play a lot of the same things over and I'm like, fuck, I'm not really moving anywhere, right? You know? So did you feel like your skills had like deteriorated or what?
I mean, not so much deteriorate. I think I wasn't progressing in the pace that I would have wished I did. You know, at the time when Chris was asking me to rejoin, but I mean, yeah, because I was doing this whole other band called Morphin. That was it wasn't as serious as Skeletal. We weren't touring nearly as much, so I was jamming with them every now and then, and of course the music is very different. But yeah, I mean, like soon as I came back, like I had been kind of like noodling around here and there, like kind of practicing solos and stuff. So like I kind of had an idea, like okay, I can somewhat pull this off, but I still was pretty like.
Were you nervous first time you actually went out and had to go out and play live with them?
I mean, it was bad enough trying to like come in and like write music for the band, but then going back and relearning songs that I hadn't even played in fucking long.
Yeah. Isn't that fun, man? Trying to relearn your solos and relearn, you know, thank God for playback where you can slow things down and actually, like, I don't know about you guys, but I started recently taking lessons from Kevin from Gorguts.
Oh, sick.
And he's helped me a lot with my solo game. I can play a lot of the other stuff pretty easily, but the solo game was always that, thing. And he got me into Guitar Pro, and I feel like that, again, old man syndrome here. Excuse me, old man syndrome here. Anything tech, I'm like, fuck, man, what the hell is this thing? You pull up guitar. Have either you guys used that at all for like transcribing or anything?
Not really. Like I used to use it back in the day, when it was Guitar Pro 5, I think.
Yeah, I think it's on 8 now.
Yeah, like once I remember re-downloading it and trying to like use it, and I was like, "What the fuck is this?" Like it just completely changed on me.
It's like a fuck. It's like you got to have a PhD in astrophysics to figure this fucker out, man. I'm like, what the hell? But it's kind of helpful in a lot of ways because you can essentially tab out your solos or whatever, your entire songs, and then import it into whatever you're using, Logic, I guess, or GarageBand or whatever, and you can actually write drum tracks on it and all this stuff. So this is like a whole new world for me, man. I'm like, he actually helped me tab out a song I'm writing last Friday night, actually, and I just keep going back and listening to it in MIDI, and it sounds terrible, but it's like, man, I wrote this. This is fucking cool, man. Check this out, But I was just curious whether that was something you guys use, because it is pretty helpful. But I mean, going back and trying to learn your own stuff sometimes, you listen back to it and you're like, what the hell did I do there? Especially if you improv like a solo where, and I don't know if this happens with you guys, but do you tend to like, are either you guys, when you do your solos, do you write them out or do you just blast a bunch of shit out and then cut and paste and figure out what works best? Or how's that work? Or both or all?
Yeah, a little bit of both. I personally, I would, if I don't have an idea, then I'd sit down, try to like just mess around, noodle until I like find something that I like, and then I'll like, there's like say like there's an ending that I liked, and I'll just keep that, and then I'll try to figure something out. Then I'll start like becoming like I'll just start piecing pieces together of like, well, I like that part in the end, so I'll try. I've done it like that, or sometimes I just already have an idea, and I'll just like kind of mess with that. Other times, I mean, it depends. Yeah, like it's most of the time it's on the spot. I've never really I usually never like write my solos before I get to the studio. I'll have ideas of what I want or like something that I hear. But yeah, like for example, like when we did like we did a tab book for 2 Minute Chaos, and when we were doing the whole, I didn't like the transcribing or whatever. I sent all the stamps to She Happens, the company that did it, and they're fucking amazing. They fucking figured out everything like to the fuck. I mean, there was a couple things here and there that I had to change, but like the majority of the stuff was like spot on. And then I figured out that this whole time I've been playing my solo wrong.
Yeah.
When I played it live, like I was playing something that I thought I played. That I actually, like, when he sent it to me and I learned it, I was like, oh shit, that is what I played. I've been playing it wrong. So there's like shit like that happened. Like, yeah, it's just weird. Like relearning. That's the thing that's kind of annoying for me. Like, especially now, like we recorded the record. Now I have to go back and relearn. It's mostly the solos. Like all the riffs I remember, obviously, but the solos, like having to go back and remember everything, it's just fucking. Luckily, since I did everything on on my own, I tracked everything. I can go in there and like listen, just isolate the guitar, even put it clean if I have to, so I know exactly what I'm doing.
Yeah, right.
So that helps a lot. But yeah, I get that. Like, yeah, there's times where I'll just sit there and I can't figure out what the fuck I did. I'm like, what the fuck did I do here? I can't figure it out. Yeah.
I mean, that's the bane of being a guitar player. Especially if you're kind of a field player where you just kind of feel it in the moment, particularly with solos, not so much riffs where you have structure to, okay, here's the verse riffs, here's the transition to the bridge, all that kind of stuff. That's a little different, but yeah, it's like you're like, fuck, what did I play there, man? Like how and then I don't know if you guys have this too, where you'll like blast the lead out on an improv and you go back and go, how the fuck did I do that? Like I did that? That's me?
Yeah.
You'll literally hear yourself and think, that can't be me, man. That's not, I can't do that. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you'll know your own limitations and be like, how did I do that? But do you guys use, real quick, I do need to bring this up. When is it time to bring up Rush? We already did, man, a while back. You guys are slacking, man. It's always spot the Rush reference from Jeff on every interview. It comes up. It's kind of like almost a joke now, but yeah. So we already did that, Roger. You weren't listening closely, sir. Do you guys, when you're tracking, we'll get to gear at the end because I always have to get some gear stuff in. When you're tracking, are you predominantly using plugins these days? Are you using live amps? What or a combination, or what's the story there?
No, it's all plugins. We'll track with plugins just to have something to hear back. That sounds okay. Like this, I think I'm using Amplitude, and that has an angle on there that we like to use. Doesn't sound exactly the same, obviously. It doesn't sound like the real amp, but it works just for tracking purposes. And then we take the fucking the fucking DI channel and we run it through our amps and track that and record that, and that's how we've been doing it for the past 2 records.
So you reamp.
Yeah, we reamp everything through our amps. And that was just something that happened because of COVID. Because when COVID happened, the studio we were supposed to do the whole record at kind of was just like, hey, fucking lockdowns are starting. Like we're not sure if we should do this. So we kind of had to just figure out like, well, what the fuck are we gonna do? We already Charlie was already down here who played on the last record on the 2-minute, and luckily the studio was okay with just tracking drums. So that was the main thing, and then we were just like, well, how should we track guitar? Should we wait a few months till this clears up to try to get back in there? And we're like, nah, fuck this shit. So we ended up just doing it ourselves from home, and it kind of just happened by accident or whatever. I mean, because of COVID, and it's kind of worked out to our favor, because now we don't have to be on the clock and be like, oh, we have 2 hours or 3 hours left to finish this. We can do it whenever we want on our own, and yeah, it's fucking awesome. We can take our time. We can come back to it when we can. Like there's times where like I'll be tracking like for this last record, I was tracking some solos and I just wasn't feeling it. I was like, fuck this, I'll come back to it. So I'll just take a break and then come back to it the next day or a few hours later, and I'll finish it up. But yeah, it's super sick, like being able to do it that way.
Yeah. I mean, it's very different from even 15 years ago or so. I mean, I just got this, and I'm trying again. Talk about aerospace technology, man. It's like, what the fuck am I in for with this thing? I mean, it's literally like a PC. It's the quad.
Yeah. The quad. Okay.
A little dusty right now. You can tell I'm using it a lot. It's got a lot of dust on it. I'm like, no, but this thing's really cool because you can, literally you can capture your impulse. Right? What's that?
Is it can you just like is that one of those things where you can just use that and go straight through the PA?
You can go straight through the PA with this because what you can do with this is you can capture impulse responses, which is your amp. You can literally put your amp in this box and you don't have to, you've got no backline. In fact, I went to see in July, I went to see Cynic and Atheist. And Atheist comes out and they're just savage and feral and Marshall heads. I think it was Marshalls. I don't remember, Rectos or whatever. I can't remember what they were using, but it's just savage in your face, fucking, hardly any effects pedals at all. I think the one guitar player, not Jerry. Oh damn it, forgetting his name. Shit. Anyways, I apologize. I'm forgetting his name. That's terrible. The one guitar player was all he had was a boost pedal. That was it. And the other guitar player was playing with a boost pedal, and I think he might have had an overdrive pedal. That was it. And then, Cynic comes out, and there's no amps on the stage. There's a drum set off on one side. The three guys are across. I don't know if you know Max from Death. You probably know Max from Death to All, right? And so Max is on the one side, and Paul's in the front. And there's not even any foot pedals, but there's a million effects coming in, and it's all done from the mixing desk essentially, right? Which I know that kind of, in a weird way, that kind of takes away to some extent some of the meat and potatoes visceralness.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But it sounded fucking epic, man. I mean, just it was unbelievable. No amp hiss, no noise gate, no nothing, and it sounded like real amps, even though you didn't get the air.
Yeah.
So I think I think that someday amps are never going to go away, obviously, for studio work and stuff. But let's be honest, man. I mean, if you could take that box and sound exactly like you do with your actual amp and head, man, that makes touring a whole hell of a lot. That means rolling in and you're up and ready to roll, and you're fucking doing your line check. Well, not your line checks. You're doing your you're doing your sound check in 15 minutes. You're like, hey, man, we got 3 hours before we can just go fucking trip around the city and do nothing. So, I mean, the future is that. It is going there. It's going to get there one day, But I was curious to see if you guys, what you were doing as far as, studio stuff. So let's talk about the new album. Then we'll do a couple quickies and what's on tap for 2024 and some gear stuff. And then we'll get out of here. Sound good?
Yeah, for sure.
Man. All right, so the new album, Fragments of the Ageless, comes out on the 8th of March, and that is coming out through Century Media Records. A lot of buzz on this one. I did not – hang on a minute here. I goofed. There we go. Let's do this real fast. I'll just pull up Metallum here. I'm sure many people have probably already seen it, but if you haven't – there's the artwork. Seagrave again?
Yes.
Yep.
I mean, he's your guy, right?
Yeah.
He is the guy.
He is the guy? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, for death metal, I think so. But, I mean, yeah, there's a lot of fucking sick artists out there. Seagrave has done a great job.
How'd you get tapped in with him? How'd you get connected with him? Through the label or again?
Yeah, I think for Devouring, we've been wanting to use Seagrave since our first album, but not having the fucking budget, we couldn't fucking get it done. But once Century Media got involved and we got a bigger budget, then we were able to kind of choose hey, who do you guys want to work with? And Seagrave was obviously at the top of that list. So we just reached out to him, and he was totally into it, and he's done same with Swana. Seagrave and Swana have been in the last 3 records, and I don't know for the next record if we'll use Seagrave again, just because we obviously don't want to fucking just keep repeating ourselves. We do want to try something different, but I'm sure this won't be the last record that we do with Seagrave. Seagrave's awesome, and for death metal, it's he's one of the best for death metal for sure.
Oh, absolutely, he's one of the iconic artists, right? And it's cool, man. I mean, it's a wicked looking cover. What's always cool about your covers is. And Seagrave work in particular is it's very evocative. The color schemes always generally are eye-catching. It's funny in a weird way. I do my thumbnail art, and I literally am just this year learned Photoshop. A buddy of mine was doing them early on, but as I started wanting to do more stuff, he's like, dude, I can't fucking keep up with you, and I'm doing this for free. So, like, hey, maybe it's time to learn this stuff. And I'm like, oh no, I'm too stupid. I'm not an artist. I don't know what I'm doing. You know, that's my excuse for everything. I'm too stupid. Probably true in a lot of cases, but the thumbnail I did for you guys, I was like, man, I'm stoked. This looks cool, and it's very simple. I'm just pulling elements of you know, photo things that are out there, digital art, and putting it together. But I'm like, man, you know, I should probably start. You know, I should probably send Seagrave some residuals on this thumbnail or something like that. If I make, you know, if I make like 6 cents on this video or something like that. But, so yeah, man, Fragments of the Ageless. You, Chris, thank you very much for sending that over. Got to jam it last night. Wow. As I said when we first started, you're one of those bands that you're instantly recognizable for your sound now, I think. And yet you're kind of up in the game. And what I really noticed about this album, and the last too, was if you go back to like Devouring, like, or actually, honestly, you know, as much as I dug the first album, and I do Beyond the Flesh, Condemned to Misery, there was definitely a step. There was something that clicked with you, Chris, maybe in particular, because you wrote a lot of that album, where you're like, hey, man, I want to get busier without sounding busier, right? And the riffs started to kind of take on their own sort of thing. I mean, yeah, there's some Treyisms in there. Yeah, there's some Lukeisms, you know, and that's okay, man, because we all do it. We have to have a frame of reference for what we're listening to transpose into what we're hearing in our heads. But what this new album, man, what going into it, Mike, I assume you were more involved in the writing for this one?
Yeah. This one.
What was happening there? Like, what were you like? Were you guys writing individually? Were you writing jointly? Was it a combination of all those things? And what was your ultimate goal with this album? To like, were you really like looking to like up that technical game as much as I feel you have on this one?
Yeah, I mean, definitely pushing it as far as we can go and testing our own limits. For me personally, at least, because you know, I felt going into Entombment, it was pretty solid, but I still feel like I'm just critical on my own effort in that. So I wanted to push myself to be like, okay, like that stuff at that time was tough for me now, but now it's like super easy to play. So I kind of wanted to count myself just to make myself get better more than anything, you know, just to become a better guitarist overall. But yeah, this record is a lot of Chris and I together. Like there's a few parts here and there where we just kind of like do our own thing and then we bring it to the studio and be like, hey, what do you think of this? Like, yeah, throw it in there. It works. But yeah, for the most part, it's Chris and I, and yeah, just trying to get it out there. They're trying to, you know, because although we've been around for what 13 years, we still feel like we're trying to find our footing in the U.S. So we're just trying to get out there and trying to get recognized. You know what I mean? Like without sounding cocky, because like we're fairly confident with what we're doing, but you know we want some new ears to come in and like check it out on their own, and hopefully this will be one that's like, okay, these guys are here to stay. Hopefully. Well,
real quick, Chris, before you jump in on that, when you guys went out in November with Incantation and Suffocation, had this already been in the can? Was it pretty much done by then?
Yeah. It was. I think we already had the final masters by then, right?
Yeah, I want to say early on.
Yeah, because we toured November. What was that tour? November, December.
Yeah,
this record had to be turned in 6 months prior to the release. Okay. So yeah.
Did you play any of these songs? Did you showcase anything?
We played 2 new songs on that record, on that tour. Sorry.
How about you, Mike? I'm sorry, Chris. What's your take on? And also, we should mention too, 2 new members, right? Am I correct?
So
as far as recording.
Yeah. Recording, yes. As far as recording, this is their first record with them, and I do want to mention that since Condemned to Misery, this is the first time we've all been together in a room as a band to write music together. Like
Wow.
after Condemned to Misery, it was mostly just me coming up with ideas, showing them to the guys. So we haven't been like the band hasn't been in a room together like as a band in front of each other to write music. So this was the first time that happened since Condemned. Um, and I think that made a difference as well. Having the other guys input on stuff. Um, Obviously, in 2 minutes, it was mostly just me and Mike in front of each other, writing ideas, putting them together on a computer with the drum machine. This time we did do that as well, obviously because Pierce and Brian live fucking Portland, Washington area, so they got to fly down here.
Okay.
So they only flew down here a couple times, to help with the writing and stuff. But yeah, I think just having them around and having their input on, and just having a new set of ears to kind of listen to what we're trying to do and get some feedback from them helped a lot. It definitely helped me as far as like being
Arranging.
so stressed out. Yeah, being so stressed out about everything, about like
Right. Not
fuck,
feeling like it's all on you.
yeah, like it was all on me. So that helped me a lot for sure, and I think that helped, like helped the writing when I was writing my own stuff. I didn't feel like I had this big weight on my fucking back, and like it helped. Like I felt more comfortable writing, if that makes sense.
Well, I think
Um,
probably, not to speak for you, but I would think myself, if I was in a band, it would, I think it would feel more comforting to know I got my dudes like behind me and it's a cohesive group effort, even if you're still making the calls as far as the songs and arranging when you're going to the other guys and going, hey, here's the ideas I had. Are you guys with it? And they're all right there and you're looking in each other's eyes going, yeah, man, that's it right there. As opposed to the phone call or the Zoom meeting where you're going, are you guys with this? And you're like, you're not sure after you get off if they were still with you or not. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where it's like, because you know how it can be sometimes. Let's be honest, man. Most bands have to have one or two driving forces in them. You can't, because usually if a band has like 5 or 6 creative people, they all want their part to be the featured part. Like turn the guitars up, turn the drums up, turn the bass isn't loud enough, or my vocals aren't featured. Whereas if it's 3 or 4 guys and 1 or 2 guys are kind of the driving forces, the other guys, if their temperament is such, they can be the guys that go, yeah, man, that's not it, man. Hear me out. That is not what that. I get where you're going, but that's not. So I mean, maybe it was that kind of vibe for you, Chris, where you were like, hey, man, I got my troops here. We're all kind of united in this thing together, and also just that vibe of hanging. The vibe of hanging.
Yeah.
Interesting, right?
Yeah, there was I think it was Evocation. That song was, I think half of that song was done just with like, I think because when Pierce and Brian were flying down, I think that week that we were gonna meet up to write or whatever, only Brian only flew down that time. I think it was only Brian. It was only Brian here, so it was me, Mike, and Brian writing, and then obviously, I mean, I still had, like I said, I mean, I'm still working when I'm not touring, because I got to pay bills. We were touring nonstop, like 4 fucking tours a year, then I think we wouldn't have to work. But being that we were doing maybe 1 or 2, sometimes 3 tours a year, and I'm still home, then if I have enough time, like if I'm not leaving within the next month, then I'll get a job, And so, anyways, back to that. I think we were supposed to meet up, but I had to go to work that day, so it was just Mike and Brian that went to the studio, and then I would show up after work or whatever. And the night before, I think we were working on something different, and I think we were just kind of stuck. We weren't getting anywhere. So the next morning, Mike and Brian went to the studio, and when I got out of work, I headed over there, and they already had half of Evocation done.
Nice.
So that was like stuff like that, like really helped. Like I would probably especially when it's me on my own, like I tend to just kind of overthink things, and I'll be like sitting there, and especially when there's no input like from anybody else, it's just me. I'm like, fuck, this is like I'm not sure about this. I'm not liking it. Sometimes I'll end up just like it's like a never-ending cycle. I don't know when I'm going to be happy, if that makes sense. I don't know how to explain it.
That's that age old saying, paralysis by analysis, man, where you're like over thinking, and that's just an artistic trait in a lot of people where it's like you want it to be perfect, but sometimes you get literally up your own ass over it. You're like, you can't see the forest for the trees, like to get out of it. Like, how do I get and you need other people to step in and kind of go, dude, you're overthinking this, or that's, man, we're way overdoing it here at this point. But you do have, and I was going to say with Brian, man, really cool addition. Where did you pull him from?
Brian was he's in a project with Pierce, like a different project. So he was kind of just like a suggestion when we were looking for a bass player. Pierce suggested him like, how about Brian? You know, we played Hunting Modern together, so like maybe he'll work out. And he was already a fan of the band. I think he had seen us before, like at California Death Fest. He was mentioned, yeah, I saw you guys in like 20. I don't remember. That was fucking maybe like 20.
I didn't realize he's the Luctum dude.
He's a what?
Luctum. He's the Luctum guy. He's the black metal Luctum, right?
Oh yeah, I think so, right? That's
yeah. I didn't even realize that. I have that album. I was like, oh, I kind of recognize that name, and now I'm seeing why I have that album. Yeah, I mean, he's got like a ton of. I'm looking at the album, like tons of shit, right?
Yes, he's involved in so many projects that I lose track. Yeah, he's yeah, man. It's like having him was really helpful because he's fucking. I don't know what it is about him, but he's just like super helpful, and he fucking like he's. I don't know. We call him
Big
Bro Brian because he's just fucking. Sorry.
He plays all kind of stuff. Looks like he plays keyboards, bass, guitar, drums, everything. Yeah.
Yeah. He did the interlude on this record. He put the keys and stuff and arranged it and everything. So yeah, man, he's just super helpful when it comes to like when me and Mike would be stuck. Like he'll come in and like kind of just get us unstuck.
Yeah.
Like, no, try this, or so he's like super helpful with stuff like that. And having, like I said, having two extra members that are like actually on the same page and want to actually do this and want to write a good record together, like was really helpful.
And you guys have a 7-minute song on here. I think it's your longest song, right?
Yeah.
Is that one of the songs where you like it? It was probably longer, but you cut it down, or did you actually push it to get it longer?
Neither.
Neither. That was just where it landed. Okay.
You want to explain what I mean? We kind of just
that was one we were stuck on for a while. Actually, for the majority of the record, like we probably have at least another half record worth of riffs and ideas that we just did not use, just because, like Chris was saying, Chris and I both kind of do that. Like we just overthink, So by the time we had Brian come down, he helped definitely with that. But yeah, for that song, we had so many different versions of it, and even the final one that was recorded is still slightly different from the demo version we have.
Okay.
So that one was just kind of like fucking around. We just wanted a good, like fucking solid epic song, just something heavy, nothing too technical, nothing too fucking outlandish, just a good fucking headbanger, something that's like catchy, and that's kind of where it just landed.
Yeah, great track. I'm, I've only gotten like 2 passes through it, so I didn't really have like time to like make super deep notes. I'm not that guy that gives immediate impressions of albums because I always feel like a lot of the times, I don't know if you guys are this way, but some of my favorite albums are albums that I listened to initially and was like, it's all right. You know what I mean? Like, it's okay.
Yeah.
I don't love it. Good example of that, A Matter in Life and Death from Maiden. I'm not crazy about a lot of the later Maiden, other than maybe like Brave New World.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of it just goes on and on and on. And Steve kind of writes these massive prog epics that kind of get yawny at times. But that particular album, I remember listening to it first and was like, oh man, nothing in this thing is grabbing me. And now it's probably one of my favorite Maiden albums, So it's like, I don't generally like to jump to conclusions quickly, but I think on this album, a couple things I'm hearing, and I think it actually started with Entombment, was, Chris, when you first started out, and again, you talk about this, so it's not anything that I'm saying that you haven't heard before. Very much Martin Van Drunen, very much John Tardy in the vocal department, right?
Yeah, of course.
Not nearly as much not nearly as much on the last two albums, in particular the new one. You are much more, I guess,
Yeah.
more raspy, more guttural. It's gotten away from that kind of that higher pitched evil Chuck thing from maybe Leprosy era stuff. You've moved into that realm. And I know you talked about this in recent, and you talked about it in a couple of interviews where you've said you're kind of a reluctant front man. You don't really enjoy being the singer front guy so much, right? What do you attribute to the slow? Is it maturing, getting older? Is it, what do you think? Because yeah, it's definitely
Um,
noticeable, and I gotta say I kind of prefer it a little bit. I just do, because I tend to, not that I don't like Tardy or Van Drunen, I do, but it was a little closer to the vest on that. Now you sound a little more unique to yourself, I think, for me, anyways.
yeah, no, I think it's definitely maturing. It's definitely like learning about like being a vocalist. Like when I was doing it earlier, the first record or whatever, I was literally just trying to sound like my idols.
Yeah,
And a lot of the times when I was trying to do that, I wasn't singing correctly, and I would just be fucking myself up, and I'd get off stage with headaches, and I just could. I felt like I couldn't really, um, like I wasn't really. I guess it's mostly about, I guess just mostly like learning, because like I said before this, I've never done vocals. I'm a guitar player, so when I went into this, all I was doing was just trying to mimic the people that I look up to, trying to sound like my favorite vocalist. But I learned with time that like it can really fuck you up. And I don't know, I just kind of like learned how to get a technique down that's gonna work for me and still sound good. And then also, yeah, just like maturing, I guess, getting older, my voice just changed. It's something that happened naturally. I think I wasn't really like trying to, like, there's like for Devouring, for example, like there was something that I was trying to do, and I don't know if it's too noticeable there, but I was kind of trying, since we were, that's on Devouring, we started introducing the 7-string guitars and the lower tunings. So I was trying to make my voice a little bit lower for the lower tuning
mm-hmm.
songs, which is something that I noticed that Morbid Angel did. Like David Vincent did that, I think, when the 7-string started getting introduced. I feel like his voice would sometimes change. Like some songs would be higher, some songs would be lower.
Yep.
So
Yep.
I was trying to do something like that as well. And then that's kind of when I started figuring out that like when I would sing a little bit lower, I felt more comfortable, and I wasn't I felt like I was like singing correctly. Like I said, like I wouldn't be like, now that I'm go on stage and I play a show, like I don't get off stage with a fucking headache. I feel fine doing it. I'm not like fucking running out of breath. Like I don't know. I think it's just technique and like figuring out how to actually sing.
Yeah, you
My voice
adapted
kind of
to more your natural tone, maybe.
yeah.
Was It's interesting you bring up the headache thing, like, because I've tried to do the death vocal. I can't do it, man. It's just I cannot do it.
Yeah.
It's way too. I can get it a little bit, and then like my voice is roached for days afterwards. Like I literally can't speak. So did you ever have any issues with that? Now you're not like a guttural guy, so you're not doing the Barnes. You're
Yeah.
more. It's more of a head voice, I guess, or more of a chest voice for you. But did you ever have any issues like that where you weren't sick, but where you actually came off stage and the next day were like, oh fuck, man, I'm in trouble.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, like, especially in the early days, a lot. I mean, this all happens from here and there, especially when, like, we don't play shows for a long time and we go on tour. Like, the first week, I'll feel it, like, oh, shit, like, my voice is kind of, you got to get back in that fucking swing and get used to it, I guess. So that still kind of happens, but not as much as before. Like, I remember before, even when we were doing shows back to back, after every show, my voice would just be shot. I could, like, barely talk, and I feel like that, like, same thing. It's like technique, trying to figure out how to do it, because like I said, when I went into doing vocals, I had no idea what the fuck I was doing.
Yeah, you were just flying blind. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you find when you're out on the road like that and you've got, a run? What's the longest run you've done? 4 or 5 weeks? Is that generally
Yeah,
it?
about Yeah, about 4 or 5 weeks usually.
So, do you find there's anything you do specifically to, you know, I mean, obviously you can't help pathogens. You try to limit too much up close and personal contact, I guess, particularly now in today's day and age. But like even before, did you notice where there were things like, for example, the age old thing? You know, you're still fairly young guys. When you're out on the road, are you serious about the performances, or are you partying much, or do you notice like if you? I mean, I would think that you'd have to watch, you in particular, Chris, would have to watch the partying because alcohol is going to dehydrate the shit out of you, right? And you
Yeah.
probably the last thing in the world you want to be doing, two last things in the world you want to be doing if you're hungover bad is, I don't know what the hell that is. Did you guys see that? I have no fucking clue what that was. It happens in my new Mac, and I'm like, whoa, it's a party. What happened? I don't know. Well, partying, that's probably what brought it out. Anyways,
Oh yeah, there you go. You
I
probably
did
said party.
one day I was talking, I forget who the fuck I was talking to. I was talking to somebody. I think I might have said the word explosion. The next thing I know, man, there's fucking fireworks going off around me. I'm like, oh, what the hell? What did I just do there? Like, I had no clue. It's a brand new Mac, so I don't know. Anyways,
That's funny.
what I was getting, yeah, that's funny. That was hilarious. What I was getting at though was, you know, you're young dudes, you're out, you're doing, experiencing some pretty cool things. It's hard if you do drink or you party a little bit to not do it, especially when you're amongst your brothers and other bands and just the atmosphere of it. But Chris, I would imagine for you, you got to be careful because I think the two worst things in the world to ever have to do hungover would be play drums, especially in a death metal band, and sing death metal vocals. So, have you had any of those experiences where you learned by making some big mistakes, like fuck, man, can't do that shit again, you know? Or do you not learn?
I don't learn.
You don't
Yeah, I
learn.
don't think I learn. No, there's. I mean, I do. We definitely. I mean, think overall, we definitely try to be smarter about things. Especially since we're doing all the driving ourselves when we're on tour. Try to play it smart. Um, yeah, I mean, it's like it's tough, like you said, with like, especially when you're touring with like idols. You know, you just want to hang out and like fucking, shoot the shit with them and kind of just fucking, whatever it is, fucking hang around, drink, and party with them or whatever. So it's hard. It definitely is hard. But yeah, no, I think definitely, from doing it for however long we've been doing it, I've definitely learned a lot. And I just try. I think the main thing is just kind of try and get as much rest as you can and drink as much water as you can. That's like I think the two most important things when it comes to like doing vocals. The rest is like crucial. Like you have to be sleeping to let your voice kind of like um, recover or whatever.
Yeah, recover. Yeah. When
Yeah,
you were out on the Incant Suffolk tour, or like maybe even the Voivod, were you guys in a full bus at that point, or were you?
No, we've never done a bus tour in the States. We've done them in Europe, but not in the States. Most of the time, yeah, all the tours we've done in the U.S., it's just like in a van. We're driving ourselves. Now we're a little bit more comfortable. We've just got a new fucking Sprinter, and we put beds in there. So
Okay.
it's definitely getting a little bit more comfortable touring now. But yeah, it's just the fact that we're like, I mean, most of the time we'll bring like a merch guy and an extra hand, with it being like a tech or whatever, whatever we need help with, just an extra hand. So sometimes we'll help with the drives, but the majority of the times it's mostly the band doing most of the
Damn.
driving. So
Yeah.
That's tough, man. You're still in that phase where you don't have people doing all the work for you. You're doing all, and you're setting up your own gear. If you
Mhm.
get a line check, you're doing all that. It's like, yeah, and you're
Yeah.
never. Let's be honest. You're rarely ever eating great out on the road, and and sleep is not. That sleep is probably the big thing, like you said, where it's like, you have the advantage of being young, right? But you're not
Yeah.
in your 20s anymore, and
it's
I'm just
got
telling you guys, just get ready. It gets worse. I'm just telling you, it gets worse. I mean, I could never, like at my age now, there's no fucking way.
yeah.
No way.
Yeah.
I couldn't be like some of these dudes. You see some of these stoner bands like Weedian or some of these dudes, they're out there still hard
Yeah.
partying, and it's still hard living that lifestyle. And you're like, how the fuck? I mean, I'm sure the weed helps. I don't know. I mean, but you know what I mean? Like, I just can't imagine being like in my mid-50s and trying to do something like that. You know, it's not like your Motley Crue and you got the fucking, you know, your own tour bus and your whole entourage doing everything for you. It's like,
Yeah.
I think a lot of fans of death metal band, they know, but it's not a glamorous lifestyle. You're in it because you love the music, you love that high of getting on stage and bringing that music, sharing that energy exchange with your fans. You know, that's the important part of it, right? But all that other travel and the fucking shitty food and shitty sleep, that's not the fun part, man, at all. You know, that's pretty brutal, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely.
Um, sorry, Mike, go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying it's definitely not for everybody.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would imagine. Mike, you moved, right?
I
You're
did.
actually not in the LA area, right?
Yeah. I just moved out to Denver. So been
Man, dude, you're in the heart of one of the, like we talked about death metal scenes when I first started the show off. It's like that's kind of like the place, right? I mean, everybody and their brothers out there in Denver now creating a death metal band, right?
Yeah, it's pretty cool. You know, whether it be we're running errands or just going for a drive, picking up some food, it seems like everywhere you turn, you're seeing like some kind of metalhead, whether it be death metalhead, punk, thrash, whatever. You know, that's
Did
pretty
you
cool.
are you friends with or do you know any of the guys like in Blood Incantation or Wayfarer or any of those dudes?
I've talked to one of the dudes from Wayfarer. Blood Incantation. We're not too. I've never really come in, contact with them really
Yeah.
much. But some of the dudes we do know are of Feather and Bone. We've
Okay. Yeah.
hung out with them a few times, and they're awesome dudes.
Yeah, that's kind of the place to be. I guess now it's like I imagine if I was living out there, I'd probably there's a lot of shows, a fair amount of shows.
Yeah.
And which would it's kind of fun. But tell me real quick on the new album. Do you have any favorite tracks that you kind of point to as like the ones that you feel are standouts and maybe you're most proud of?
For me personally, I would say Evocation, the instrumental is pretty cool. It's nowhere
It's
near technical or brutal as the rest of the record, but I don't know, it stands out to me. I think there's really cool ideas that we threw out, and I'm just super stoked on it.
Yeah, it's different. It's kind of a unique sort of sound for you guys. Now, if I'm not incorrect, Chris, you can probably correct me if I'm wrong here, but I'm pretty sure I've heard little bits of synth on some tracks on some of the older albums, right?
Yeah, we put there. I think Ripperology had some synths on there, or Bowels. I'm trying to remember. I think even Condemned had some synth stuff. Obviously, just in the background.
Who was
like
playing those? Was that just you throwing some chord stuff in?
No, I think it was just like friends from high school who kind of like, I just like, hey, you think you can try to come up with like a quick synth part for this? And like he knew about like, I think I'm trying to remember who, or I think Carlos did some for Condemned. He did a lot of I think we had like some bells or something, or like just effects, like he would come up with them on his keyboard or whatever. And I think on Devouring on like Ripper,
yeah,
I think we did have synths on Ripper, and
yeah,
I think on that, I think it was just like a friend from high school that when I was writing the song, I told him like, hey, I'm hearing like some synth stuff, and he was very good at Logic Pro, so he had a bunch of plugins, and he kind of just showed me like, look, dude, these are the plugins. Go through them, see what you like, and then we'll just match the notes. And yeah, it was like me and a friend just got together and came up with it, and then we just sent it to Swano, and he did whatever he did. But like, there's also like, for example, like the intro on Entombment, like that's all Swano. He came up with that.
okay,
So that has like synths and a bunch of different other fucking effects that he put that all together. We just kind of told him like, hey, we want to come up with an intro, and he's really good at that stuff. So he's like, I told him like, this is what we're hearing, something like this. I gave him some examples, and yeah, he just put that together, and it came out fucking great.
yeah, it's nice because it adds to the atmospherics of the music. I mean, that thing. So, what's on tap for 2024 that you can get into?
So as of now, like the next thing we have right now are the album release shows. We're doing like 4 shows here in the West Coast. And then we have tour that should be announced soon that we'll be doing in the U.S. like May and June. That should
Is it a
be
headlining
getting
tour or a support?
no support tour. Yeah, yeah,
Big
that should be
bands that
getting
you're going
announced.
out with?
Yeah, some good. Yes, I think it's I want to say it's a four band package, but
Okay.
I have to check. I'm not 100% sure, but it should be. We should be getting all the like the admats and stuff to announce it soon. I mean, um, yeah, it should be getting announced like any week now. Like in the next, I think in the next coming week it should be getting announced. But yeah, we have that, and then we have festivals in the summer in Europe, and then a headlining tour in the fall that we're working on, and I think that's all we have for the moment. There's some talks about doing some South America stuff in December. That's not it's not like completely confirmed yet, but there's talks about doing that. And then we'll be going back to Europe in the beginning of 2025 for like a big package, like a big death metal package.
Cool, man. Somebody had brought up, I think Devin brought up that you started using sevens. Well, you actually mentioned it too on devouring. Or is that all you use now? Just sevens?
No, we still
No,
jump.
it's still yeah.
Okay, because I thought in some of the live videos I've seen, I know I see you guys playing sixes.
Yeah.
And let's talk real quick about gear real fast. And I'll get you out of here right at the 2 hour mark. Chris, you're playing Schecters, but you were playing, I heard you talk about Carvin, right? And Carvin, Kiesel, whatever. I think they're more or less the same company, more or less. Yeah, very unique guitars. Man, they're making some fucking amazingly beautiful instruments. That, once upon a time, going way back to, I guess, the 80s, late 70s, Steve Vai was kind of the guy that kind of was their first big name guy that, what's the word I'm looking for? Endorsee, I guess, or something like that. Because he had the Legacy amp, was the Carvin amps. They're more known for their amps and their instruments now. But now, man, you go on their website, man, you can build the most insanely killer guitar. You got to have a little bit of scratch.
Yeah.
You got to have some cash. But Chris, you said your favorite guitar is an old Carvin that you have. What year was it?
No, it's not super old. It's I got it in like 2015 or 2016. It's just that Jason Becker Carvin signature model, the JB 220, I think it is.
Okay.
That's definitely like my favorite guitar that I own.
Did you build it, or did you buy it new, or did you find it used?
Yeah, I bought it new when they announced that they were doing the Jason Becker Sig. I picked it up, and yeah, I took it out on the road a few times with my older band, and it just got too much road wear, and I just was like, that guitar means too much to me to like. I just keep it like at home. Like I'll bring it out for like, I think I brought it out for, I don't know if I brought it out for Entombment, but I think I definitely brought it out for Devouring. I did a few solos on that on Devouring with the backer, but yeah, man, fucking their quality is amazing. Like they're just like that for me. Like I really like the Carvins and the Carvin keys or whatever, and the Ibanez, like especially like the Wizard necks, like the very thin necks. Like I really like those. The Schecters are awesome too, especially for like the road. Like they're just built really well.
Yeah, Road Warriors. Yeah, they're solid guitars, especially for the money, man. I mean,
yeah,
you don't have to spend a shit ton of money to get a decent Schecter that'll be very playable, and that you don't have to worry about it more or less. Well, you do have to worry about it getting ripped off, but I mean, you don't have to worry about it fucking you up on the road and just being a pain in the ass and staying in tune and stuff. And how much of the material is 7 versus 6 when you're doing live stuff?
We usually for live we usually try to split it like evenly. So like we'll do 4. Like if we're doing a 10-song set, we usually try to do like 4 or 5 6-string, and then the other half 7-string.
And what tunings are you playing in predominantly?
C sharp standard 6-string, and then when you add the 7-string, it just brings it down to G sharp.
G sharp, right. How about you, Mike? What are you using? You have limited?
I had started off with like just mainly using Ibanez, Was that with I wasn't with them, but that's all I was using for a couple of years. And then as of recently, I've just been kind of branching out, trying to find something that like I really, I'm really stoked on. And as of late, like the for my 7-string, I've got a Jackson. It's a Randy Rhoads model, but 7-string extended scale, and that thing's been fucking phenomenal. And then for my 6-string, I jump between my ESPs and this smaller brand called Roars, which is another fucking amazingly made guitar. And that's just jumping between all those. Like that's kind of where I've landed. I mean, I'm still kind of searching. Like there's still some stuff that I would like to do. Hopefully in the future, maybe get a custom going with somebody. But yeah, as of right now, those are my go-to.
Yeah, you know how it goes. Like with guitars, I'm sure you guys are like this to an extent. You're only limited by your wallet, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like I've got 4 or 5 of them back here, and I'm always looking at. I was just talking to Paul Masvidal last night about. I almost bought one of his Strandbirds back in November.
Mm-hmm.
We were right on the edge of getting it, and then he kind of disappeared on me for about 10 days. And I was getting that urge, man. I gotta buy a new guitar. So I bought a PRS because I love PRSs, and I bought a PRS Custom 22 semi-hollow. And of course, the day after I bought it, Paul texted me. He's like, "Hey, dude, I think I'm ready to move on that Strandberg. What do you?" He's like, "Let's get together on the deets." And I'm like, "Fuck, dude." Because I didn't want to be that guy where I was like every day going, "Paul, are you ready? Are you ready? Like, where can I send you the money?" It was like I very impatient dude. When it comes to gear acquisition stuff, I'm like, I gotta have more. So what Chris, you were talking about the carbons, man.
He just moved to Masvidal just moved to Kizo too, right? I think
he just moved to Kizo. Yeah. So if you're looking for Strandbergs, let me know. I think he's getting ready to unload, man.
Yeah, I the thing about me too is like with guitars, especially like with companies like I would love to use a Kizo or an Ibanez, but they just don't make good shapes. Like especially for like death metal, like I'm looking for more of like an extreme shape, and it's hard to find them unless it's BC Rich, which everybody uses now, and it's like.
So yeah, now thanks to the BI guys, everybody wants an Ironbird, man. Ironbirds. It's like back in the day, man. Like, yeah, I remember when Joe Perry. You guys know who Joe Perry is, right?
Yeah.
Like Joe Perry was using a Mockingbird, and it was like the most wildest looking guitar, and but nobody wanted them because they were too weird. Like they were just too strange, right?
Yeah.
But and I show this off a lot. I'll show you guys because you'll probably appreciate it. But this is kind of my baby right here. And everybody hates this shape. The Dean Cadillac.
Oh, okay.
And everybody
Rob
hates
Barrett uses that, right?
Yeah,
Rob Barrett uses one of those.
Yeah. Yep. I love him, man. I think, and he's probably the only death metal guy that I can think of that uses one. It was more like a Waddy Wachtel for Stevie Nicks, the Cars, Rick Ocasek played one, and I always wanted one. And then when I finally blew a bunch of money here recently, I'm like, man, I gotta get one of those. And mine has a licensed Floyd on it, and I'm digging it. And I'm mostly a fixed bridge guy because I just always seem to run into. You really got to know what you're doing with those to have kind of be a gear dude, and I'm not that guy. I break stuff rather than fix stuff usually. So this one I like, man. I've virtually had no problems with it. So do you guys do your own work, or do you have guys that work on your guitars for you?
We do our own shit. Like I mean, even to this day, I still know what the fuck I'm doing though.
Yeah, it's mostly shit that I've learned like as I go or whatever. But I mean, we do have one guy that we use that we take to like if we really need like if I need something like done like for example like when we were getting to record and having 2 kids, it's just like finding the time to fucking sit down and fucking intonate your guitar, get it ready to. I'm just like, dude, fuck this. So I have a dude that I take it to, Andres. He's here local. Shout out to him. He's fucking awesome. And we'll drop it off to him, and then the next day, it's like, oh, it's ready. We'll come pick it up. And so we do have a guy that I usually take it to, but I mean, for the like shit like on the road or when I have time, I'll just do it myself.
Yeah.
What about amps? like live angle all angles? Which one, the Ubershaw or?
I use a Powerball 2.
Which one?
Powerball 2.
Okay.
Yeah, and then Mike uses
Fireball 100.
I'm not super familiar. I know the Ubershaw and the Shiva because I know there for a while Jerry Cantrell was using a Shiva for quite a while. But what is that? That's not a was that 100-watt head?
Yeah, I'm not sure. You know what? I've never heard of the ones you're talking about. I'm not sure. Are you sure you're not confusing it for a different company? Because I only know. Yeah, maybe you're getting it confused because I've never heard of those.
Angle Ubershaw, I know is one. I thought the Shiva was.
I mean, maybe they're. Yeah, maybe I just never heard of them. They're older.
They're older. They're older.
Yeah, they might be. Yeah, So yeah, I use a Powerball 2. I got introduced to them years ago, like 2015 or 2016, when I did a European tour, and there was a Powerball 1 that I used for that run, and I was just completely sold on it. And I just hit them up, and I'm like, hey, I'm so and so. I play in this band. I'm touring 2 to 3 times a year, and they hooked me up, and I've been with them ever since. And then like my amp that I own, the Powerball, I've had it for over 10 years, and I haven't had one issue with it. And I take it out on the road. It's like my man head, I take it out on the road all the time.
I might be wrong. I'm thinking. I know the Angle Ubershaw is one, but the Shiva I might be wrong on. I'm not sure why, because now you got me wondering whether I'm. What Nate'll tell me. Nate knows all the fucking guitar gear shit, and he's the guitar nerd in the chat here. But so when
is there a chat available? I haven't even seen.
Yeah. There's been a bunch of people, man. We had almost 20 people in here this afternoon, which is very cool. So.
Oh, okay, cool. I haven't really seen anything, but
yeah, I don't know. Nate, you still out there, Nate? By the way, he told me to do this. Throw this up. Let's see if I get like a weird thing. He said if I throw this up, you'll see another effect will happen. What's got
some more balloons?
I was just gonna say Ronnie James Dio is gonna come over my shoulder or something. So yeah, man. Look, I want to get you out of here because Chris said you got to roll at 2. I could probably talk to you guys for another hour easy, but you guys got shit you want to do. So I want to thank you very much for being here today. I'm looking forward to the new album coming out. I have my copy on order, Chris, as I showed you, and I will say one thing. And this is not you guys, so don't take it personal, okay? Century Media really likes the price gouge, man. Holy fuck. Their vinyl is expensive compared to a lot of the other. That's all I'll say. You can if they call you up and say, what the fuck was with that guy? Fuck that guy. I'm just saying they're more expensive than virtually everybody else on vinyl. It's kind of weird. But I don't mind laying out the scratch for a band I really dig, and the I don't know what it's called. Is it called the Fire? What's it called? The variant of it's like
the Sunspot.
Yeah, killer looking variant. I have to admit, as much as I hate to say it, I am sometimes a sucker for the marketing ploy of colored vinyl. Every now and again, I'm like, man, because like I have all your shit on CD, but when I saw that, I'm like, because I just bought a record player back in November. I was like, man, I've been there, done that. I don't need to do that anymore. I bet you I bought 200 albums in the last 3 months, maybe. Old stuff. Well, old stuff and new stuff. I mean, just as an aside, because of my medical situation, I came into a pretty nice chunk of money. So I was like, that I'm sure get that. It was like one after another. I'm like there for a while. It was like the UPS guy was probably like, fuck this guy, man. Holy shit. Like, literally the mail and shit I was getting 5, 6, 7 things a day. And it was like, I got to chill a little bit. This is getting a little out of hand. You know how it is. You get this stuff and then you're like, well, now I got to listen to it. Right. Now I got to sit down and pay attention. But that Sunspot variant really got me. And I think they're about out of them. That was limited to a certain number, right?
Yeah. Well, it's limited to our, so it's weird. I think the total number is 500, but there's only 250 available from us. Okay. So I think we're down to like the last 3 copies, but we did set some aside because we're gonna make them available on our
the
release
tour.
shows. On the
Mhm.
release shows, yeah, just on the release shows, but it's very limited. I think we only have like 25 available. I haven't announced it yet, but yeah, so we'll have 25 for the album release shows when people come out if they want to buy them.
Where are those shows?
Besides that,
Mention those shows where you're playing.
they're so the first one is in Petaluma, I believe. No, Santa Rosa. Sorry, Santa Rosa.
Yeah.
And then we come down to LA. We do 2 shows in LA, one in LA, one in Orange County, and then the last one's in Vegas, and that's March 7th through 10th.
I would imagine. Oh, well, I have all the links below in the description. Your Bandcamp, I have Century Media in there. I have all the, the website, the Facebook, the Instagram, all that good stuff. So I would say if you're out in that area, get out and see these guys live if you can. Support them by merch. I apologize, Century Media. Don't shadow ban me now. All right. I still want access to some of your artists to talk to. So, guys, anything you want to wrap up with real quick?
Just thanks for having us, man, and thanks for. I wasn't even sure if anybody tuned in because I didn't see any comments, but thanks to everyone that tuned in, and yeah, hopefully we'll see you out on the road soon, and I hope you guys pick up a copy and enjoy the new record.
Hell yeah.
Cool, Mike. Anything you got?
I got nothing.
Second that, you're like, I got nothing. I just want to go take a piss. Get me out of here. All right. Hang on, guys. 1 second real quick. I'm going to wrap up. Guys, there was going to be a deep dive tonight on the remainder of the Jethro Tull catalog. Myself and Eric, we're going to do that. We're going to hold that off till probably next week. I'm not feeling so great today, so I think I don't think I want to be doing that till 1 a.m. or 3 a.m. the way my shit rolls. You know how that goes. And then next week, we've got Hanzagoro on Thursday. That's my buddy Tom Draper from Spirit Adrift. Talking to him about their album release. It's coming up on the 8th. And then I've got Mark Zonder on Friday from Warlord and Fates Warning coming in. So lots of and one, I don't know if it's going to happen next week, but it might be the week after. But we've got a legendary, I throw that word around way too much. But this guy is fucking legendary. Death metal legend from San Francisco. I'll let you think about that. I can't announce it just yet, but this guy's coming on, I believe, in the next 2 weeks, and we're going to do that up. So thanks, everybody, for being here, and we'll catch you later. Hang on, guys.